Dr. Elena Vasquez was drinking her morning coffee when the world changed forever. The emergency alarm at the research facility screamed so loud that she nearly dropped her cup. After 20 years of working at this remote station, she had never heard that particular sound before. It was the one alarm they all hoped would never ring. She ran down the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. Other scientists were rushing from every direction, their faces pale with excitement and fear. The containment bay doors were already sealed shut, with red warning lights flashing everywhere. Lena saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. There, in the middle of the sterile white room, stood a small figure that definitely wasn't human. The being looked like a young girl, but her skin glowed with a soft blue-green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She was tiny, maybe 4 feet tall, with delicate features that would have been beautiful if not for the obvious pain. Written across her face, the alien girl's eyes were the most striking thing about her. They were large and expressive, but filled with such fierce anger that Alina instinctively stepped back from the window. Those eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for an escape route. Her whole body was tense, ready to spring into action at any moment. What broke Elena's heart was seeing the girl's right arm. It hung at a strange angle, clearly broken or badly injured. The skin around the wound was darker than the rest of her, glowing flesh, and it seemed to pulse with an unhealthy rhythm. The injury looked infected, and Elena could tell the girl was in serious pain. But instead of crying or calling for help like any human child might do, this alien girl was showing nothing but pure rage. When one of the security guards got too close to the containment field, she bared her teeth and let out a low, threatening sound that made everyone's skin crawl. Her teeth were sharper than they should be, and that growling hum seemed to vibrate. Through the air itself, Alina watched as the girl began to pace back and forth in the containment area. Her movements were quick and sharp, like a wild cat in a cage. Every step she took was calculated and dangerous. The way she carried herself reminded Alina of a wounded tiger she had once seen at a wildlife rescue center. Beautiful, but absolutely deadly. The other scientists were talking excitedly behind Alina, discussing protocols and procedures. Someone was calling the government, another person was setting up recording equipment, and the security team was checking their weapons. But Alina couldn't take her eyes off the girl. She noticed how the alien's glowing patterns seemed to change color when she got more agitated. The peaceful blues and greens would shift to angry reds and oranges. Whenever someone made a sudden movement, Dr. Mitchell, the facility director, arrived within minutes. He was a tall man with gray hair who usually stayed calm under pressure. But Alina could see the tension in his shoulders. This was the moment they had all trained for. But nobody really knew what to do when it actually happened. The alien girl seemed to sense that more people were gathering outside her prison. She stopped pacing and turned to face the observation window. For a moment, Alina found herself looking directly into those fierce eyes. The girl's expression was a mixture of pain, anger, something else. Something that looked almost like fear. That's when Elena realized something important. This wasn't just some dangerous alien invader. This was a hurt child, scared and alone, lashing out because she didn't know what else to do. The girl's aggressive behavior wasn't evil or malicious. It was defensive. She was trying to protect herself the only way she knew how. The containment field hummed quietly around the girl, creating an invisible barrier that kept her trapped in the center of the room. Alina knew the technology was designed to hold much larger and stronger beings, but looking at this small, injured figure, the whole setup felt cruel and unnecessary. As the hours passed, more people arrived at the facility. Government officials, military personnel, and scientists from other research stations all came to see the alien girl. Each new arrival seemed to make her more agitated. Her glowing patterns flashed brighter, and her threatening growls became more frequent and intense. Alina noticed that the girl's condition was getting worse. The infection in her arm was spreading, and she was moving more slowly than before. Whatever was wrong with her, it was serious, and she needed medical attention soon. But every time anyone tried to approach, even with medical equipment, the girl would fly into a rage that made it impossible to get close. The standoff continued through the day and into the night. The girl refused to eat the food they offered, wouldn't drink the water they provided, and seemed to grow more hostile with each passing hour. Alina stayed at the observation window long after her shift ended, watching and worrying about this fierce little being who was clearly suffering. By the time the sun began to set, Alina had made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't stand by and watch this child waste away from pain and fear. There had to be a better way to help her, even if it meant breaking every rule in the book. The next morning brought no relief. Alina arrived at the facility before dawn, hoping to find some improvement in the alien girl's condition. Instead, she found something that made her heart sink. The girl was still pacing in her containment area, but her movements were slower and more labored than before. The infection in her arm had spread overnight, creating dark streaks that pulsed with an unhealthy glow. Dr. Mitchell called an emergency meeting in the conference room. The table was crowded with scientists, government officials, and military advisors, all arguing about what to do next. Alina sat quietly in the corner, half listening to their debates, while her mind stayed focused on the suffering girl just down the hall. "We need to establish communication first," insisted Dr. Rodriguez, the facility's linguistics expert. "Without understanding her language, we can't help her properly." "Communication won't matter if she dies from that infection," Alina finally spoke up. "She needs medical attention now, not later." Colonel Harrison, the military liaison, shook his head firmly. "The protocols are clear. Can't risk direct contact until we understand her capabilities and intentions. For all we know, this could be some kind of biological weapon." Alina wanted to argue, but she knew it would be pointless. These people saw a potential threat where she saw a sick child. The meeting dragged on for hours, with everyone talking in circles, while the alien girl grew weaker by the minute. When Alina returned to the observation window, she found the girl sitting on the floor for the first time since her arrival. Her glowing patterns had dimmed considerably, and she was cradling her injured arm against her chest. The sight was heartbreaking. This fierce little warrior was finally showing signs of the pain she had been hiding behind her anger. The research team had set up various communication devices around the containment area. There were speakers playing mathematical sequences, screens showing simple pictographs, and even a keyboard that could produce musical tones. The girl ignored them all. Every few hours, she would look up at the cameras with those intense eyes, but she never responded to any of their attempts at contact. On the second day, Dr. Chen from the psychology department made an interesting observation. "Look at her behavioral patterns," she said, pointing to the video recordings. "She's less aggressive when there are fewer people in the observation area. Large groups seem to stress her out." Alina had noticed the same thing.
When the room was
crowded with officials and scientists, the girl would pace frantically and make those threatening growling sounds. But during quiet moments, when only one or two people were watching, she would sometimes stop and simply stand still, as if she was trying to gather her strength. "Maybe we're overwhelming her," Alina suggested. "Think about it, she's injured, alone, and surrounded by strangers. Anyone would be terrified in that situation." Dr. Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. "You might be right. Let's try limiting the number of people in the observation area. Maybe she'll calm down if she doesn't feel so crowded." The change was immediate and dramatic. With fewer people around, the girl's aggressive displays became less frequent. Still wouldn't let anyone approach the containment field, but she stopped that constant pacing. Instead, she would sit in one corner of the room, watching the cameras with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Alina volunteered to take the night shift, staying alone in the observation room while the girl rested. It was during these quiet hours that she began to notice small details that everyone else had missed. The girl's glowing patterns weren't random. They seemed to follow emotional patterns. When she was in pain, the colors would shift to deeper, more intense hues. When she was calm, they would soften to gentle blues and greens. It was almost like watching someone's mood ring, but infinitely more complex and beautiful. Alina started keeping a journal, documenting every color change, and trying to understand what each pattern might mean. She began to suspect that this wasn't just random bioluminescence, it was a form of communication. On the third day, the girl's condition took a turn for the worse. The infection had spread up her arm and was starting to affect her shoulder. Alina watched in horror as the girl collapsed while trying to stand up, her legs shaking with weakness. The glowing patterns on her skin flickered like a dying light bulb. "We have to do something," Alina pleaded during the morning briefing. "She's going to die if we don't help her soon." "The medical team is working on it," Dr. Mitchell replied. "They're analyzing her blood samples and trying to develop a treatment." "Blood samples?" Alina was confused. "When did you get blood samples?" "The containment field collected some when she first arrived," Colonel Harrison explained. "Standard protocol for any unknown biological entity." Alina felt sick to her stomach. They had been studying the girl like a lab specimen while she suffered alone in that sterile room. No wonder she was so hostile. She probably knew exactly what they were doing. That afternoon, Alina made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't stand by and watch this child waste away while the adults argued about protocols and procedures. The girl needed help, and she needed it now. Sometimes, Alina thought, the most important thing wasn't following rules, it was following your heart. As night fell over the facility, Alina prepared for the most important moment of her career. She gathered her medical supplies, took a deep breath, and prepared to do something that would either save the alien girl's life or end her own. Alina waited until the facility was quiet. It was past midnight, and most of the staff had gone home or were sleeping in the dormitories. Only the security guards remained, making their rounds every hour. She knew their schedule by heart after 3 days of careful observation. Her hands trembled as she gathered her medical supplies. A portable scanner, antiseptic wipes, bandages, and a small bottle of pain medication that she hoped might work on alien biology. She had no idea if any of these things would help, but she had to try something. The image of the girl collapsing earlier that day wouldn't leave her mind. The hallway was dimly lit as Alina made her way to the containment area. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure the security cameras would pick up the sound. She had already disabled the audio recording system in the observation room, claiming it needed maintenance. It was a small lie, but one that might save both their lives. When she reached the observation window, Alina saw the alien girl curled up in the corner of the containment area. Even in sleep, she looked restless and uncomfortable. Her injured arm was pressed against her chest, and her glowing patterns flickered weakly like a candle about to go out. The infection had spread even further, creating dark veins that crawled up toward her neck. Alina took a deep breath and approached the control panel. Her security clearance would allow her to enter the containment area. But doing so would trigger automatic alarms throughout the facility. She would have maybe 10 minutes before the entire security team arrived. It would have to be enough. Her finger hovered over the entry button for a long moment. Once she pressed it, there would be no going back. She would either save the girl's life or lose her own in the process. But looking at that small, suffering figure, Alina knew she had no choice. The containment field hummed as it deactivated. Alina stepped through the doorway, and immediately the girl's eyes snapped open. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the sterile white room. Alina could see the confusion in those large, expressive eyes. Confusion that quickly turned to alarm. The girl tried to stand up, but her weakened condition made her stumble. Alina instinctively moved forward to help, but the girl's reaction was immediate and explosive. Despite her injuries, she launched herself toward Alina with a speed that was both terrifying and desperate. Alina braced herself for impact, but it never came. The girl collapsed just inches away from her, her strength completely depleted. She lay on the cold floor, breathing heavily, her glowing patterns flashing in rapid, panicked bursts. Alina could see the internal struggle playing out across her. Face the desire to fight warring with the simple fact that she no longer had the energy to do so. "It's okay," Alina whispered, though she knew the girl probably couldn't understand her words. "I'm here to help you." She knelt down slowly, keeping her movements gentle and non-threatening. The girl's eyes followed her every motion, alert and wary despite her exhaustion. Alina could see the fear there, but also something else, a tiny flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this human was different from the others. Alina held up her hands, showing that they were empty except for the medical scanner. She had left her other supplies by the door, not wanting to appear threatening. The girl's eyes locked onto the device, and Alina saw her tense up again. "This won't hurt," Elena said softly, activating the scanner. "We just need to see how badly you're injured." The device beeped quietly as it analyzed the girl's condition. Elena's heart sank as she read the results. The infection was worse than she had feared. It was some kind of alien bacteria that was slowly poisoning the girl's entire system. Without treatment, she would be dead within hours. Elena set the scanner aside and reached for the antiseptic. Wipes. The girl watched her with growing curiosity, her aggressive posture softening slightly. Elena cleaned her own hands thoroughly, then looked directly into the girl's eyes. "I'm going to touch your arm now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it hurts, but I need to clean the wound." The girl seemed to understand Elena's intention, even if she couldn't comprehend the words. She shifted slightly. Exposing her injured arm, Elena could see the pain in her expression, but also a growing trust that made her chest tight with emotion. The moment Elena's fingers made contact with the girl's skin, something magical happened. The girl's threatening growls transformed into something entirely different, a soft, rumbling sound that reminded Elena of a cat's purr. The angry red and orange patterns on her skin shifted to gentle blues and purples, colors that seemed to radiate peace and gratitude. Elena worked quickly but carefully, cleaning the wound with gentle strokes. The girl's purring grew louder, and she actually leaned into Elena's touch. It was as if the simple act of compassionate contact had awakened something in her, a recognition that not all humans were her enemies. "There," Elena whispered as she finished cleaning the wound. "That's better, isn't it?" The girl's response was to reach out with her good hand and gently touch Elena's face. Her fingers were warm and soft, and the bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsed with what could only be described as affection. In that moment, Elena realized that this wasn't just about healing a physical wound. It was about bridging the gap between two completely different species through the universal language of kindness. The alarms started blaring just as Elena finished applying the bandage. She had run out of time, but looking at the girl's peaceful expression, she knew it had been worth it. The transformation had already begun. The alarms were deafening, but Elena couldn't bring herself to move away from the alien girl. Security guards burst into the containment area, their weapons drawn and voices shouting orders. But something incredible happened that stopped everyone in their tracks. The girl, who had been fierce and threatening for 3 days, was now curled up peacefully next to Elena. Her soft purring sound filled the room, and her skin glowed with the most beautiful colors anyone had ever seen. Instead of the angry reds and oranges, gentle waves of blue, purple, and gold flowed across her body like liquid starlight. Colonel Harrison pushed through the crowd of guards, his face red with anger. "Dr. Vasquez, step away from the alien immediately. You've violated every protocol we have." Elena looked up at him calmly. "Look at her, Colonel. Really look at her. Does she seem dangerous to you now?" The girl had opened her eyes when she heard the commotion, but instead of becoming aggressive, she simply moved closer to Elena. Her good hand reached out and gently touched Elena's arm, as if she was asking for protection. The gesture was so human, so childlike, that several of the guards lowered their weapons without being ordered to do so. Dr. Mitchell arrived moments later, his face a mixture of concern and amazement. "Elena, what have you done?" "I saved her life," Elena replied simply. "And I think she's trying to save mine too." Over the next few hours, Elena refused to leave the girl's side. The facility's medical team worked around them, carefully monitoring the girl's condition and studying the strange infection that had nearly killed her. Elena stayed close, providing comfort and reassurance whenever the girl seemed frightened. By the medical procedures, the transformation was remarkable to watch. As the days passed and the girl's physical health improved, her entire personality seemed to change. The sharp, predatory movements that had terrified everyone gradually gave way to graceful, flowing gestures. She began to explore her environment. With curiosity rather than suspicion, Elena noticed that the girl was incredibly intelligent. She would watch Elena work with intense concentration, seeming to understand that the various medical devices were helping her get better. When Elena would approach with medicine, the girl would hold out her arm willingly, her skin glowing with soft, trusting colors. But the most amazing change was in how the girl interacted with Alina. She had become almost like a devoted pet, following Alina around the facility whenever she was allowed out of the containment area. The girl would sit quietly in the corner of Elena's office, her presence both calming and somehow protective. Dr. Chen, the psychologist, was fascinated by this development. "It's like she's imprinted on you," she told Alina during one of their sessions. "She sees you as her protector, her safe person in this strange new world." Alina had started calling the girl Zara, based on the musical sounds she made when she was happy. The name seemed to please her, and she would light up with golden patterns whenever Alina said it. Communication was still limited, but they were developing their own language of gestures and expressions. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the healing incident, something wonderful happened. Alina was working at her desk when she felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She looked up to see Zara standing beside her, holding a small flower that she had somehow found in the facility's greenhouse. The gesture was so sweet, so completely human in its sentiment that Alina felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thank you, Zara," she whispered, accepting the gift. "It's beautiful." Psst. Zara's entire body glowed with pleasure, her patterns shifting to warm, happy colors. She made a soft sound that Alina had come to recognize as contentment, then settled down beside Elena's chair to watch her work. The other scientists were amazed by Zara's transformation. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been working on communication protocols, discovered that Zara's bioluminescent patterns were actually a complex form of language. Each color combination and pulse rhythm had specific meanings, creating a visual vocabulary that was more sophisticated than anything they had imagined. Alina learned to read these patterns better than anyone else. She could tell when Zara was happy, sad, curious, or tired just by looking at the colors flowing across her skin. It was like having a conversation without words, a connection that went deeper than language. Zara's favorite time of day was when Alina would sit with her in the quiet observation room. The girl would curl up next to Alina, her skin glowing with gentle, peaceful colors. Sometimes she would make soft musical sounds, almost like she was singing. Kana would hum along, and Zara would try to match the melody, creating beautiful harmonies that filled the room with an otherworldly music. The research team began to understand that Zara's species was naturally empathic. She could sense emotions and respond to them, which explained both her initial violent reaction to their fear and her growing gentleness as she felt Elena's love and care. This discovery changed everything they thought they knew about alien intelligence. In emotion, Alina often marveled at how much her life had changed. 3 weeks ago, she had been a lonely scientist working at a remote facility. Now she was the bridge between two worlds, the human who had shown that kindness could transcend any barrier, even the vast distances between stars. But the most incredible part was yet to come. Late one evening, as Alina was preparing to leave for the day, Zara did something that took her breath away. The girl approached Alina with her usual grace, but this time she spoke not in her musical alien language, but in perfectly clear English. "Thank you, Alina," Zara said softly, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You saved me." Elena's heart nearly stopped when she heard Zara speak those first words in English. The girl's voice was soft and melodic, with a musical quality that seemed to come from somewhere deep within her chest. After weeks of communicating through colors and gestures, hearing actual words was like witnessing a miracle. "You can talk," Alina whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How long have you been able to speak our language?" Zara's skin glowed with gentle golden patterns as she smiled. "I have been listening and learning since the first day. Your language is beautiful, but your emotions are even more beautiful. I felt your kindness before I understood your words." Over the following days, Alina discovered that Zara's species was far more advanced than anyone had imagined. They didn't just communicate through their bioluminescent patterns. They could actually feel the emotions of other beings around them. This explained why Zara had been so aggressive at first. The fear and suspicion of the research team had overwhelmed her already injured state. "When you first came to me," Zara explained during one of their quiet conversations, I felt something different. Your heart was full of worry, but not for yourself. You were worried about me. That feeling was so warm and safe that I knew I could trust you. Alina learned that Zara came from a peaceful planet where her people lived in harmony with nature and each other. She had been on a learning journey, exploring the galaxy to understand different forms of life. When her ship was damaged by a meteor shower, she had barely escaped in a small pod before crash landing on Earth. I was so scared when I arrived, Zara admitted. Everything here felt harsh and cold. The metal walls, the bright lights, the emotions of fear and curiosity pressing against my mind. I thought I was going to die alone and far from home. Alina felt a deep sadness hearing this. I'm so sorry we frightened you. We didn't know how to help. But you did help, Zara said, her patterns shifting to warm, grateful colors. You showed me that humans have the same capacity for love and kindness as my own people. That gift is more valuable than any medicine. As weeks turned into months, Zara became an unofficial member of the research team. She would sit in on meetings, offering insights about her own culture and asking thoughtful questions about human society. Her gentle nature and obvious intelligence gradually won over even the most skeptical scientists. Dr. Mitchell was amazed by how much the facility had changed. She's not just living here, he told Alina one day. She's teaching us things about empathy and communication that we never knew before. The way she can sense emotions and respond to them, it's revolutionary. Zara had a special gift for understanding. When people were upset or stressed, she would approach them with her characteristic grace, her skin glowing with calming blue and green patterns. Somehow, just being near her seemed to help people feel more peaceful and relaxed. Alina watched with pride as Zara formed gentle friendships with others at the facility. Dr. Chen enjoyed discussing the psychology of different species with her. Dr. Rodriguez was fascinated by her unique perspective on language and communication. Even Colonel Harrison, who had initially been hostile, began to appreciate her quiet wisdom and gentle humor. But Alina remained Zara's closest companion. They would spend hours together, sometimes talking about their different worlds, sometimes simply enjoying each other's company in comfortable silence. Zara had a way of curling up next to Alina that reminded her of a contented cat, her skin glowing with soft, peaceful colors. You've saved my life, Zara told Alina one evening as they sat watching the sunset through the facility's windows. But more than that, you saved my faith in the goodness of others. I will never forget that gift. Alina felt her throat tighten with emotion. You saved me too, Zara. You taught me that love really can overcome any barrier, even the distance between stars. The peaceful routine was interrupted 6 months later when long-range sensors detected an approaching spacecraft. Zara's people had finally found her. Alina felt a mixture of joy and heartbreak. Joy that Zara would be reunited with her family, but heartbreak at the thought of losing her dear friend. When the rescue ship arrived, Alina was amazed to see how different the first contact was from Zara's original arrival. Instead of fear and suspicion, there was warmth and curiosity on both sides. Zara's people were gentle beings who glowed with the same beautiful patterns, and they were genuinely grateful for the care Alina had shown their young explorer. We have heard much about the human who healed our child, said Zara's mother, a tall, elegant being whose skin shimmered with patterns of deep wisdom. Your kindness has opened a door between our worlds that we hope will never close. Lena learned that Zara's transformation had been broadcast to her home planet through some kind of empathic connection. Her people had felt the change from fear to love, from pain to healing, and they understood that something special had happened on Earth. The farewell was bittersweet. Zara promised to return someday, and she left Alina with a small device that would allow them to communicate across the vast distances of space. Distance means nothing when hearts are connected, she said, her final words glowing with patterns of eternal friendship. Months later, Alina still felt Zara's presence in her life. The facility had become a center for interspecies communication. With Zara's people visiting regularly to share knowledge and culture, Alina often smiled when she remembered the fierce, wounded girl who had arrived that morning so long ago. The experience had taught her that healing wasn't just about medicine or technology. It was about opening your heart to others, even when They seemed frightening or different. Zara had started as a fierce alien girl, but through love and patience, she had become something beautiful, a bridge between worlds, teacher of compassion, and a reminder that kindness truly is the most powerful force in the universe.